I've always had a fascination with Greek history, so it was a dream come true to be able to visit the nation of Greece in the spring of 2025. I also managed to convince a friend named Andy to come along. Shortly after arriving, we decided to visit the Isle of Aegina. So we headed down to the Piraeus, the port of Athens, and got ourselves a ferry and set off for Aegina.
In a few minutes, we will be approaching the port of Aegina. Only drivers are kindly requested to proceed to the garage. Other passengers can enjoy their journey for a while longer.
We arrived, and the first thing we did was we decided to look around the port.
This dock.
Yeah, the water is so clear.
The water is crystal clear, and I am kicking myself right now for not bringing my fishing rod because there's fish.
Wow.
After looking around the port for a while, we decided to look for some food. After lunch, we ended up renting some bikes, and then we set out to explore the island on bike. Now, it wasn't long into our ride that we made a most uncomfortable discovery. Yeah, so we got these cheap 10 euro bikes, which you could probably buy for 10 euros at a yard sale or something. And we just realized, or we've been realizing as we've been riding around, that they have a lot of problems. Like, what's the problem with yours, Andy?
The second gear, the second level of gears doesn't work.
So you're going downhill and you just have to.
So
you can't
I just
pedal.
coast down the hills because it doesn't have enough gearing to go faster.
Mine has an issue with the brakes. The brakes are always on, even when you try to loosen them up. So I've been coasting along and wondering why it feels like the bike is dragging me backwards. But we just decided that it means extra exercise for us will be extra strong. We finally arrived at the Church of St. Nectarios.
Okay.
St. Nectarios was a Greek man born in the 1800s, and he lived until the early 1900s. I think it was around 1920 when he died. And he decided at the age of 30 to become a monk. So he ended up going to the University of Athens, becoming a deacon, and then moving from there to become a priest. And eventually he was made a bishop in Egypt, in Cairo, Egypt. Unfortunately, after about a year, a bunch of the clergy there became very jealous of him, and so they came up with a bunch of false accusations, and they didn't even let him go on an ecclesiastical trial or speak in his defense. They just kicked him out. They're like, you have to leave. So he left, went back to Greece, and it was during that time where he came to Aegina and founded both the Church of the Holy Trinity and the Monastery of the Holy Trinity for the nuns. And it's said that this man was a miracle worker. He especially had the gift of healing, so he would pray for people and they'd get better. There was one time where there was a drought, and he prayed and there was rain. Supposedly, we were told this at the monastery as well. His body didn't decay for about 20 to 21 years. And then for some mysterious reason, it started decaying afterwards. Andy and I were fortunate enough to be able to see his casket, or what I believe was his casket, in one corner of the church. Well, it was a really solemn experience in there, except for one thing. Next, we ascended the hill to the Monastery of the Holy Trinity. When we arrived at the top of the hill, we met with a little surprise.
No shorts. Oh, we'll have to. Interesting. Look behind you.
So what are you doing there, Andy?
putting my pants on.
Why?
Because the sign in there says that I'm naked if I'm not wearing them.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that what it said?
Yeah.
After wandering around the monastery for some time, Andy and I made our way into a building which turned out to be sort of a museum of St. Nectarios, containing his relics, everything from his couches to his books to his shoes. Speaking of books, St. Nectarios was also a prolific writer, and some of his writings have actually been translated into English. So if you're interested, down in the description below I've included a link to some of the works of St. Nectarios, which you can purchase on Amazon or some other site. Anyway, when we had finished looking around, we jumped on our bikes and sped away.
That's really annoying that you can't go that fast with that, because like you could be cruising down these mountains. Whoa, that was close. I almost wiped out. Oh man. We came from over there. We rode past all that.
Yep, pretty impressive. We finally arrived at the gift shop, just down the hill from our second destination, the temple or sanctuary of Aphaia. As is the case with most gift shops, it had a few overpriced items, but it also had a nice scenic overlook. A few minutes later, we entered the archaeological site itself.
Okay. Sanctuary of Aphaia.
So apparently the Temple of Aphaia was built around the year 500 BC. It was actually built on top of two other temples that had previously been destroyed or fallen into ruin. So I came across an ancient historian called Pausanias, who wrote a book entitled The Description of Greece. And in his book, he actually mentions this temple on the Isle of Aegina and explains the story behind it. So Minos, the king of Crete, was full of affection for Aphaia, and he wanted to have her as his wife, but she didn't really want to marry him, so she fled from him and ended up jumping, in order to escape him, jumping into like a fishing net or something, getting tangled up. And Artemis, another Greek goddess, heard about it, and she thought it was such a brave deed or something that she deified Aphaia. And so ever since, the Greeks worshipped her because she jumped into a fishing net or something. It's cool, there just seems to be cats everywhere in Greece. When we were in Istanbul, they said that they have cats everywhere to clean up all the vermin. So that might be part of the reason why they do it here too.
Look at all the cats.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto the road.
Quarter mile and we'll turn right onto the road. Passing on the right. Maybe not, because I can't pedal with this bike.
So we arrived at the port quite a bit earlier than everybody else. And Andy was very happy about that because he assumed that we'd be at the front of the line, and hence we would be able to get on the boat first, and hence he would be able to fall into a nice cushy couch somewhere on board and rest in oblivion for an hour until we get back. Unfortunately, things didn't exactly happen the way he had expected. We did get there before the crowds, but this was a bit of a culture shock. We found out that being first in line doesn't mean you'll remain first in line. Or being first doesn't mean you'll be first in line. It was every man for himself, and everybody was pushing to get on board, so it was whoever pushed the hardest would get on first. It was a little culture shock to us Americans who are used to standing in line, but I guess that's not how they do it over there. This is cool. After we boarded, it turned out there was no reason to worry because the ship was much larger, I think, than the one we had boarded that morning, and much more luxurious. There were couches everywhere.
Isn't this, what do you think of this place, Andy?
This place is bougie.
I know, it's like fancy compared to the one we came on earlier.
I ended up exploring a little bit of the ferry, but it was hard to get Andy out of his chair, although he finally did right before we got to the port. Anyway, we arrived back at Athens and our day at Aegina was over.